You live in a damp climate, certainly one where they use salt on the roads during the winter, then you really do need your brave trousers on when you pull the carpets up. So the problem with this seam sealer is that it's gone brittle. It's absolutely solid. So subsequently it's coming off in brittle chunks. And this is why, when this comes off in lumps like that, it causes problems like that. Because the water just gets behind the seam seal. There's barely any paint on it. In fact, if I get the wire brush, which is right there, nothing fancy. We're looking at the primered surface up here. And we're pretty much straight through it. Certainly here, when I was working on these areas, the paint's actually flaking off. So I think that the car has lasted this long is kind of, well, it's down to the fact that it's had a very, very costed life, I think. Now, by wire brushing down here, I have found a hole into the footwell, but that's not a huge issue because I need to do the footwell anyway because of that issue up there. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop this section out. The main reason being is it does require some rigidity because the spring for the bonnet hinge braces against that, and that is, it's moving around. It's not gone past the point of being utterly useless yet, but it's not far off it. So this seam seal, hard seam seal, needs to come out. And then once I've got it all out, we can start working on a new modern seam seal after we've rust treated and so forth. Yeah, I've seen a lot worse. But you know that, don't you? And over here, you can see that as I'm running the knife along the seam seal, it's just chipping away, making a lot of noise. There we are, big chunk. Another big chunk is thinking about coming out here, but it might need to be a very small screwdriver rather than a zip wheel. As you can see, I've taken the precaution of covering the nice paintwork up. We don't want to be causing problems up there. And then down here, we've got a big line of seam seal down here. That's all going to have to come out because I suspect that it's going to be no bloody good. And then we have actually got a nice big piece of filler down here. It might actually be glass fibre. I wonder what that is. Why have they done that? It is glass fibre. Quite a big chunk of it. I bet there's one tiny little hole up here, and they've put a huge smear of glass fibre over it, which then, of course, is starting to rust underneath, because that's what happens. Right, I'm going to get all that off without holding the camera with my other hand, but I'm working on the other side at the moment. Then I got distracted by this. I'm rather hoping that if I can get all of this shite off, yeah, it's just the line down there has blown. See it about here. It's all glass fibre, never mind. So yes, I'm going to get a small jeweler's screwdriver and just see if I can work the worst of the brittle seam sealer out and take it from there. Then you really do need your brave trousers on when you pull the carpets up. And here's why. So the sound deadening goes right over the top of the tunnel, so agreed with the customer just to cut the sound deadening along the edge of the tunnel here, and it gives me access to a world of fucking pain. This is exactly the same problem that I encounter elsewhere, in that the seam seal is crap. and the body is largely covered with primer, and it's just now I think that said, this bit here is just surface rust. So again, what I'm saying with this is that we caught this just about in time. Now I managed to expose another tinsy hole down here, but I think once I've vacuumed all of this lot out, we'll be okay. That's the reinforcing bracket for the front mud flap for some reason. I'd never seen a reinforcing bracket before like that, but yeah, so although the bottom of the sill looks absolutely fucking beautiful, the top of the sill has had moisture trapped against it, which is a rotten shame, isn't it? Now, I've not even done the driver's side yet. I'm not brave enough to do that. What I really want to do is to hoover all this crap out, get all these electrics out of the way that are up here. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to do that yet. Probably just nuts and bolts, I would have thought. There's various brackets here, look like they should come away, really. And then treat this rust, and where I need to, weld this rust. I mean, that there looks like that's going to go through. That's gone through, see? And that was with a wooden, before you're moaning like hell about me going at cars, another one there, going at cars with hammers. No, I'm going at them with a wood bracket. So I'm going to need to do some repairs there to the edge of the transmission tunnel, so I'm going to need to cut more of this sound deadening away. I don't normally see them rust that far up. You can see where it's likely to go through, because you'll see like a massive indentation like that there. You can see that obviously we've gone through a fair thickness on the steel. Similarly over here, that's actually not too bad there. I could probably get away with that, because it looks like the top sheet of steel, which overlaps the footwell sheet of steel, has rotted, but the footwell sheet of steel hasn't. All of this, however, over here is not pretty. Fuck's sake. And again, you can see here the effectiveness of the seam sealer at this stage in the car's life. In fact, that's not even seam seal, that's tape. Oh dear. Right, I'm going to have to cut more of the sound deadening out, and then let's see what's going on the top of the seal here. I'm rather hoping the majority of the seal's going to be in good order. Now here, this piece here, that is the top of the sill, and that's the remains of the floor. So that there is not particularly helpful. And again, all I'm doing here is using a wire brush of my Herculean strength. I think this actually is going to be a relatively straightforward piece to repair, because the sill is in good order, so I'm inclined to actually cut the floor along here. Need to take the seat box covers off, and then once I've done that, I'll be able to, I might even take this lip off here. As it's distorted and rusty anyway, we might as well take it off, repair the top of the sill, or repair the floor that boxes in the top of the sill, work out what I'm going to do over there, work out what I'm going to do over there, work out what I'm going to do over here. Despair. I'm going to need possibly even to take the seat out. I don't know yet. Probably be easier if I took the seat out completely. Right, and all of this was because there was a hole there. You can see now little holes starting to come through here and here. I'm not going over it with Mr. Tappy. I'm going to identify where there's loose rust, and I'm going to take it from there. Otherwise we're going to end up chasing our arse around. But see where you kind of get problems with this. And then we've got this rust has gone up underneath this sound deadening panel here. So as I'll tap in the sound deadening panel with me wooden mallet, first and foremost, it's gone brittle, so it's useless. I might as well just take it out. That can just come out. And yeah, this is getting more strippy downy by the second. This is. What's interesting though is you can actually see the original construction. So the footwell came down, and then there was a strip of steel along here, and another strip underneath this sound deadening panel, which went like that. So there's a triangular, sorry, paralleloid piece of steel that boxes in the bottom end of the sill, and it will make the repair sections a lot easier if they did it like that, wouldn't it? Oh yes. Right, now, what are we fucking doing up here? Because I need to work on getting this lot apart, really. Or am I going to weld the bottom end first of all and work my way up? I don't know. I really don't. Is the honest answer there? I think first of all we need to see where the enemy is and take it from there. So all of this black area down here, excuse the flickering, it's my light, was covered by the sound deadening panel, which was all very brittle. And you could see under the back end of it here, just in front of the chisel, there was quite a lot of rust seeping in and underneath that panel. Also at the top edge there was rust. But overall, everything that was underneath that panel so far has survived. So, where am I? Well, repair along that edge over there. It's more or less going to be a strip of steel cut out, welded in. Repairs up there on the heel board, repairs on the top of the sill. I'm going to cut this lip off first and foremost. There's about 5 or 6 spot welds or so to drill out. I'm going to take the lip off and I'll replace that in its entirety. That's the lip for the door seal. When I've done that, then I can start brushing the crap out. If we go in here, we can see, you can't see, it's full of crap. The seat support has been very damp at some point, and yeah, we'll see how bad that gets. On the outside edge, it sort of goes under the floor, and again, it's been very damp. It should look like that, and it looks like that. I'm going to get the other light. But yeah, so apologies for the flickering, folks. But obviously I'm working and then making these videos in breaks during my work in order to enlighten you good people on where we're going with this. Well, what we're going to do here, because there's rust there, and there's also rust going into the floor, and there was rust over there as well, is I'm actually going to take the floor, top of the sill section off here, and cut it along here, or cut it along there, cut it along the outside of the sill. It's actually quite solid there. Take this section off, replace this section in its entirety, because it's compromised on many of the sides. You can see here is actually nothing really connecting onto the side of the bulkhead. When this is out of the way, I can repair the base of the bulkhead, I can repair the base of the footwell, I can repair that edge, and then I can put this piece back in again. And then the top of the sill, I'm more or less going to cut off about here and replace from this line right the way to the outside. And I will put an edge on it, but put the edge down on the inside of this section. I was going to go a bit further back, as you can see from this kind of cut out here, but that would have involved taking out the rear floor section. And to be honest, once I started cutting to about here, which is where I stopped, the metal was getting good, and you can see here that there's actually still primer here. You can see where the water's ingressed, but it's nowhere near as bad as it is up here. So, yes. Now, what's a shame about all of this is underneath, apart from a bit around here, this all looked really good. But as you can see, the metal is really thin here, which is why I decided to take it out right up to the edge. So I just noticed as well, we've got the EAS receiver is down here, so I'm going to have to drop that out of the way as well. thing is, I mean, like, do you just patch over a patch, or do you do it properly? Now, the customer wants me to do it properly, and had he not wanted me to do it properly, I'd have just sent it back and say, we'll get someone to do the MOT patching on it for you. I'm not prepared, I don't think, to do this unless it's properly. Now, that said, there's actually not a huge amount then holding the top edge of the sill along here, and it may well be that I end up taking, that's the blanking piece at the end of the sill, taking along here, finding the spot welds along the top. There's one there, there's one there. The floor support goes underneath this bit, but once I've got this piece out, I should be able to see what's going on. But it's getting bigger and bigger, this job. And just, you know, the stuff I'm cutting out, it's not exactly beautiful, really, is it? So it's not like I'm cutting out good metal. This bit was where I started to realise, this bit came from over here. This bit was where I started to realise, oh, actually, this isn't too bad here, but it's easier for me to weld a straight edge straight onto there. And I think if I was to cut, let's say even diagonally across there to here, because I don't want to be taking this out of the way, then I can replace that piece of shite there. Now underneath here there is the L section that runs from the front to the back that normally secures brake lines, fuel lines, blah de blah de blah. That's going to have to come out. And I think what I might do before I weld this all back in, I might do those bits over there, because it might be easy. No, it's actually on the other side of the main chassis rail, isn't it? There we go. That's me just thinking out loud. Yeah. Sorry, Dennis. It does happen. You can see up here, once I took that reinforcing plate off for the front mudguards, which weren't fitted, you can see how bad it got under there. Thank you to Dale for all of the fire blankets. As you can see, we're well kind of embellished in here. I'm using the reciprocating saw rather than the grinder, rather than the angle grinder, the cutting disc, purely because it's just less sparks, less detritus. But as you can see, as we're going through, we are finding quite a lot of shit falling out. Most of this came from this edge along the top here, and most of what's in there, when I clean this all back, you look at the bottom of the sill. Let's get the lamp in there. Look, bottom of the sill. Well, it's beautiful. So I think repairing this sill is definitely the road forwards, rather than replacing it. Yeah. I don't know what you think. Someone will be shouting at the television. They will be shouting, saying, ham-fisted gibbon. I know! I do. There, you can see the air receiver down there for the EAS. So the EAS has got everything apart from the airbags, as I'm led to believe, and someone has turned it off, put springs in. So it could be a relatively easy fix. I don't know. What I need to do is get all this welding done first. Fuck on my boots. Now, interestingly, there was one tag there, 4 spot welds for the first, 18 inches of sill to floor covering. Now, I seem to recall when I was doing the 1989 Vogue SE out there, there was a lot more than that. So were Land Rover just getting blasé at this point, and they really didn't want to sell these Softdashes? They wanted people to buy the P38, and so they just threw them together. I don't know. Answers on a postcard. And here we've got one spot weld there, one there, 3 there, one there, one there. But you know, we've got like 3 times the amount of spot welds in half the distance as we have at the front edge. So I don't know, you tell me. This thing now, I've trimmed the original sill top section front to back. I know where it needs to go at the front. There's the original floor support there, which I'm going to reuse. No reason why not. It's in the right sort of place anyway. I need to make some localised repairs up here. There's a pinhole there I can see. So really, I can cut out the floor section now, get it in the right sort of area, but I can't weld it in until I've fixed all of these little issues. So bump, 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 butt weld. Up here, bump, 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 butt weld. Might have to go Mr. Tappy on this section here to find out how far this rust actually goes up here, because and I'm pushing this through with my finger. It's not very strong. And the problem is that while it might pass muster for Mr. Tappy now, it might not pass muster for Mr. Tappy in 4 months' time. So the idea really at this point is to get this thing done as much as I need to, such that it doesn't need doing again in 15 minutes. Now, I need to obviously go over and flap all of these spot weld remains back, hoover all of the crap out of the sill, and start making up repair sections now we've cut it all out. Right, the mess on the floor is increasing in size, but I think really we need to start now thinking about putting this thing back together again. Now we're not pulling it apart anymore. And hopefully you can see the logic behind cutting right back to here, because I had to do that anyway. And also most of this area around here was compromised. You can see here, the metal was quite thin. While it was beautiful there, it was shite there. I also managed to get this piece off intact, so either I will cut another piece exactly the same shape and put it back on, or cut that one off. I had to just drop the wiring out of the way and off the loom. It's down here somewhere. These two wires here, they go down to the rear wheel sensors for the ABS. And that was really about that. Okay, I think what I'm going to start with is measuring up and making this sill top section back up again. Getting ready here to weld the first two pieces in. So there's the first bit, which I've fabricated. Now, these channels, they are exactly the same diameter as the track rod, which is around here somewhere, up there. Just use it to beat over the edges, and when it goes in, lines up beautifully. Okay, so happy enough with that. Let's go in. I need to cut that section out up there first and foremost and weld that. I'm going to weld the back end, I'm going to weld the sill section top in, and then I'm going to work on those other holes at the front there. I started to cut out the floor repair section. It might end up being a lot less complex than that. I got the curvature right. I'm going to lay it up against the floor and see what I need to do. The problem I've got with it is I haven't got something to create the end of these flutes. This bit here, can you even see that? That bit there, I haven't got the bit to create the end section. And you can see up in the, you can't see up in the footwell because it's pitch black. Let's get Mr. Torchy. If you look up in the footwell over there, you can see I'm right on the base of the flute. Now I might end up having to just cut that across straight to make the repair easier. I'm probably almost certainly going to cut right up to the edge of the bulkhead side panel, but then there's the hole there that I need to chop out, so I'm just going to chop that square out and we'll see where we go to from there. I'll use one of the blankets to go over the top of the chassis rail to protect the electrics we've got down here, but this isn't too much of a bother. Just to disconnect, there's a plug that goes into the chassis rail right there, which I can pull out and get all the electrics out of the way, and then welding a couple of sections on the top of the sill here. I've ground all the rot out, needs to be treated with rust, and we can move forwards. So Mr. Tappy comes in useful in going along here, bang, 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 and finding any areas where there might be loose steel, and there isn't. The only areas are very much local to that hole there. If I was to go over to this area, you see Mr. Tappy is opening up holes all the way along there. So Mr. Tappy really is finding more and more holes at the front edge here, but the back edge, relatively straightforward. So I'm going to chop that section out. Once the section's chopped out, what I tend to do, over to my clean workbench, I was looking at the wiper motor earlier on, which is why that's there, I can go down there. What I tend to do is to keep the bits that I've chopped out, that's the floor section, that's obviously this section, which then I chopped that bit out on as well. So keep the bits, because you never quite know when you're going to need them. Now I've made that piece up, this lot can get lobbed away. Don't need it anymore. That can go in the scrap bin, which is full up. Boop. And I'm waiting for Mr. Scrap to turn up. And I've got a load more bits over here, which have come off this car underneath the welding mask. So these are the bits that I really need to be fabricated. So what have we got here? We've got the edge of the sill. Yeah, that's been an edge of a sill a little bit too long. Edge of the bulkhead. That's the bracket that went underneath the floor support, which I have made up new and will weld back on again. So that bit can go in the scrap bin. That's the bottom edge of the front footwell. Side of the bulkhead. Lip that holds the seal. As and when I make up these repair sections, then I can get rid of the old original bits. One bit welded in. Just need to flap this weld back a little bit, but that's done that piece. You can see I wedged a fire blanket up the back there. Much the same now here. So I just put a fire blanket over the top of the chassis, the top of the wiring here, and weld that bit in. So what I've just cleaned all the edges up and everything, and what I'm going to do next is on this piece, I'm just going to drill a couple of holes so I can drop plugs through and onto those reinforcing pieces. Otherwise I'm fearful they might rattle. And then a bit of zinc primer. I'm going to weld the bastard in. Okay, right, there's these bits welded in. Flickery light, sorry. It's fucking useless, isn't it, Richard? So the top of the sill's welded in, which I'm quite happy with. I still need to complete these areas onto the inside of the A-post, but that's all more or less ready to do. And I need to weld to the top of the reinforcing support bracket, which is just there. Then I started looking at all this shit, because of that hole there, what I'm actually inclined to do, cut more or less where the line is, here, 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 cut along just above this lot here, right the way up to the top, drill the spot welds here, take this whole chunk out, take the whole fucking thing out, and then we're going to see what we can do with it once it's on the bench. I think it's going to be the easiest way to deal with it. There's actually not much of the original floor left at this point, but I don't know another easy way of doing this. I'm going to end up spending more time splicing little patches in than I am replacing the whole chunk. The main reason for this is obviously we've got the holes, the obvious holes along here. We've got a hole there. We've got a number of very, very, very weak areas along here and here and here. I mean, these are very, very, very deep pits here. I doubt they're going to last much longer. And then we've got this whole edge has disappeared up here. So for me, it does make sense. Now what I need to do is to find the original spot welds along this top edge, and I think they're these weird things here. I couldn't tell you. Yes, I think. And I've been tidying up this edge here. So again, it's getting to be a close run thing as to whether I've used one of the footwell panels in order to replace everything, but the majority of this is sound. So if I was to replace the whole panel, then I end up disrupting more of the bulkhead side. At the moment I've only drilled out the bottom 4 spot welds on this edge here, and I'll be able to put in a piece of steel that tidies that up. And then once I've dropped everything from the top of the dash down, I can repair that hole, repair the top of the bulkhead, and then I'm done on this bit, I think.